G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smithson's Photography. Today we're at the Lizard, the southernmost point in England. We're here at mid-morning, so it's not a great time for photography. There's a lot of people here. The sun's bright, which is a good thing. The last couple of days in Falmouth have been drizzly rain, but I'm going to try and get some shots here anyway. What I'm really interested in is, swing you around a little bit here, the colour in this cliff face on the point. I'm really interested in trying to capture some of that. So we'll give it a go, and also the water movement around the rocks might require a bit of neutral density filters to slow the shutter speed down and blur that water a little bit to make it a little more interesting. Otherwise it's just flat water really. There's very little wave action, but we'll give it a go and see what we come up with. Beautiful place though. Also interested in these cliffs and rocks over here, so I'm going to try these first before I move back up the hill to shoot back towards where I'm standing now to get these coloured cliff faces in the sun. The challenge here is going to be shooting into the sun, but I'll give a few shots a try, trying bracketed exposures. I don't want to blow out the highlights reflecting off the water, but I'll use a polarizing filter to try and drop those down a little bit, but I also want to capture the blacks in the rocks. But I want enough detail in those too. So that's going to mean bracketing and probably either HDRing or blending back in later. But I'll give it a go and show you what I end up with. Alright, so the first shot is this vertical of this cliff face with black rocks around the base. I've put a polarizing filter on the front, and if I just rotate that around, you'll see the effect that has by reducing the glare. So I'm going to start with that as a shot, but then I'm going to slow the shutter speed down with neutral density filters just to blur that white water a little bit around the edge and make it a bit more interesting. As I said in the introduction, there's really very little wave action at the moment, so freezing that with a normal shutter speed isn't going to be terribly interesting. But we'll have a look at those and see which one is the best. So shutter speed 1/30th of a second at aperture f11 at ISO 100. Pretty standard sort of a setting in bright light, but I really want to slow that shutter speed down, so we'll give it a go. 4-stop graduated neutral density filter over it. That's really evened out that exposure on the sky. I'm now at 1/5 of a second f11 at ISO 100. Take that shot. And now I'm going to try slowing that shutter speed down. I'm going to put a 10-stop filter on to start with. That will really slow it down and see what we get with that, but I may bring that back up with a 6 or a 3-stop if 10 stops is just too much. Often it just blurs out everything and you don't even get white water, but we'll give it a go. So as predicted, the 10-stop filter was just a bit too much. It blurred the water out so much that even the white water around the rock edges disappeared. So I've switched over to a 6-stop filter, which is giving me a shutter speed of 8 seconds, which is just giving me a little bit of white water. The sun is coming and going now, but the benefit of that is that there are now some clouds in the sky, making the sky a little bit more interesting in the background. So I've widened the lens out to 24mm to capture a bit more of that. moved over around onto the little point on the right hand side from where I was shooting last, and I've put a 12mm lens on because I want to get the full width and height of this scene to capture this little cove under here and a bit of the foreground as well. I've still got the 6-stop neutral density filter and the 4-stop graduated neutral density filters on to slow the shutter speed down and to reduce that highlights in the sky and the sea on the right hand side. So we'll give this one a go and then move around to the other side of the point where there's some really interesting rock formations that I'll probably zoom in a little bit closer on and see what we can get just with some patterns of the rocks in the sea. Shooting straight off the point, and the sun's coming in and out from behind clouds, which is making exposures a bit of a challenge, but I'm going to try and pick out a few shapes in the rock formations with a 70-200 lens and hopefully get some of this white water around the edges of them just to pick out a highlight or two and emphasize the yellowy weeds and barnacles on the rocks against the black rock and that turquoise sea. Although shooting almost directly into the sun, it's going to be difficult to pick out the colour of the sea, and even a polarising filter doesn't do much, but we'll give it a go and see what we come up with. So the first shot is looking straight out off the point at this large rock formation, and I'm just trying to focus on these little small rock islands with the waves washing around the edges of them, and trying to wait for a time where there's enough white water to make it interesting around the edge. And one last location down here on the point is to shoot this old lifeboat house with the broken down ruin of a ramp. And I took the shots before taking this bit of video because, as you may be able to see down just on the beach behind the lifeboat shed, there are a series of canoeists, and they were canoeing back in towards the shot that I wanted to take, and I wanted to grab it before that. It wasn't going to be a long enough exposure to blur them out completely, and I would have ended up with coloured streaks throughout. So I took the shots then. What I was aiming to do is to emphasise the colour of the rusty coloured old ramp, the rusty coloured cliffs, and these beautiful pig face, red pig face and green pig faces on the cliff face directly in front of me in the foreground. So if you've liked this video, please like, subscribe, click the bell to get notified when I make new ones, and remember, pixels are free, so get out there and shoot more. Bye for now.